Everything you call reality was once only an assumption in someone's mind. Every skyscraper, every fortune, every breakthrough, every transformed life began as an invisible belief before it became visible truth. But most people destroy their own future because they have been taught to worship facts instead of imagination. They've been trained to be realistic. And that is exactly why they stay stuck. Because realism only repeats the past. Realism only accepts limitations. Realism only bows to appearances. But the human imagination was never designed to obey circumstances. It was designed to create them. Tonight, I want you to stop asking what's realistic. I want you to ask a far more powerful question. What if the life you desire is waiting for you to assume it first? Because the moment you stop identifying with limitation, the moment you stop emotionally surrendering to current conditions, the moment you begin living from the reality you choose internally, your entire world begins to change. This is not about wishful thinking. This is about understanding the hidden law that shapes every human experience. So open your mind, silence your doubts, and prepare to see your life differently, because being realistic may be the very thing ruining your future. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change the outside world without ever realizing that the outer world is only a mirror. They fight circumstances, chase opportunities, fear rejection, and react emotionally to every visible condition, believing that reality is something fixed and separate from them. But the truth is far deeper than that. Your world is not happening independently of your consciousness. It is responding to the assumptions you consistently accept as true within yourself. Every experience, every relationship, every success, every limitation first exists internally before it becomes visible externally. Life is always reflecting back the identity you are unconsciously carrying. Think about how powerful this really is. If you repeatedly assume that life is difficult, somehow life always finds a way to prove you right. If you secretly believe that people cannot be trusted, you continue attracting experiences that reinforce betrayal or disappointment. If you assume money is hard to obtain, opportunities seem scarce no matter how hard you work. But when someone changes their internal assumptions, reality itself begins shifting in strange and almost unbelievable ways. New opportunities appear out of nowhere. People respond differently. Doors unexpectedly open. Coincidences begin lining up in perfect timing. It feels magical to the person experiencing it, but it is simply the outer world reorganizing itself around a new state of consciousness. The problem is that most people have been conditioned to trust appearances more than imagination. They look at current circumstances and allow those circumstances to define their identity. If they fail once, they assume they are failures. If they struggle financially, they assume they are poor. If someone rejects them, they assume they are unworthy. Over time, these assumptions harden into beliefs, and those beliefs silently shape reality day after day. The outer world then becomes a continuous cycle of confirming what they already believe about themselves. That is why many people feel trapped in repetitive patterns. They are unknowingly recreating the same reality from the same internal assumptions. Your assumptions are far more powerful than your temporary actions. You can work hard every day and still remain stuck if your inner identity contradicts what you desire. A person who assumes they are unworthy of success will unconsciously sabotage opportunities even when they appear. A person who assumes they are unloved will interpret neutral situations as rejection. A person who assumes life is against them will notice every obstacle while ignoring every blessing. Reality does not simply respond to what you want occasionally. It responds to what you consistently believe yourself to be. This is why inner conversations matter so much. The words you repeatedly whisper to yourself become instructions impressed upon your subconscious mind. Every time you say, "Nothing ever works for me," you strengthen that assumption. Every time you say, "I'm always struggling," you emotionally identify with limitation. And because consciousness seeks consistency, reality continues reflecting those assumptions back to you. The world acts like a mirror with no ability to judge. It simply reflects the image you hold within. But here is where your power begins. The moment you consciously choose a new assumption, your reality begins changing from the inside out. You do not need permission from the world to become someone new internally. You can decide today to assume that you are successful, valuable, loved, confident, abundant, and powerful. At first, the outer world may not immediately reflect it because reality often carries momentum from past assumptions. But if you persist emotionally in the new identity, the reflection must eventually change. Just as a mirror cannot resist a new image standing before it, reality cannot permanently resist a changed consciousness. This is why you must stop measuring your future by your current circumstances. Your current reality only represents old assumptions becoming visible. It is delayed evidence of past thinking. The future changes the moment your assumptions change. When you begin waking up each day, assuming that life supports you, you start noticing opportunities that were always there. When you assume you are worthy, your posture changes, your energy changes, your decisions change, and people unconsciously respond to that shift. The world is constantly reacting to the identity you occupy internally. Many people spend years waiting for the outside world to give them confidence before they believe in themselves. But true transformation happens in reverse. You believe first, you assume first. You emotionally accept the new reality internally before it appears externally. That is the hidden secret behind every great transformation. The outer world follows the inner world, not the other way around. So stop worshipping appearances. Stop letting temporary conditions tell you who you are. Your circumstances do not define you unless you emotionally agree with them. The moment you stop identifying with limitation and begin assuming greatness internally, your reality starts moving in a completely different direction. Because the world you see is not fixed reality. It is a reflection of the assumptions you continuously hold within yourself. Your life will never rise above the identity you secretly hold about yourself. You may desire success, wealth, love, freedom, or recognition. But if your inner self concept does not match those desires, reality will continue pulling you back into old patterns. This is why so many people experience temporary progress, but eventually return to familiar struggles. The outer world can only reflect the story you consistently believe about who you are. Until your self-concept changes, your life remains trapped inside the same invisible boundaries. Most people underestimate the power of identity. They believe their results come only from hard work, luck, education, or external opportunities. But beneath every action is a self-image directing behavior. A person who believes they are confident naturally speaks differently, walks differently, and makes different decisions than someone who secretly believes they are inferior. A person who assumes they are worthy of love behaves completely differently from someone who assumes abandonment or rejection is inevitable. Your self-concept silently controls your expectations, reactions, emotions, and choices every single day. This is why two people can face the exact same circumstances and experience completely different outcomes. One person sees opportunity while another sees impossibility. One person persists with certainty while another quits from fear. The difference is not always intelligence or talent. The difference is identity. The world responds differently depending on the version of yourself you believe yourself to be. Your self-concept acts like a hidden blueprint shaping your entire reality. If deep inside you believe you are unlucky, life continues presenting situations that reinforce that belief. If you assume you are invisible, overlooked, or unimportant, the world mirrors that assumption back through experiences and relationships. Many people are unknowingly carrying identities created in childhood through criticism, failure, rejection, or emotional pain. Over time, these experiences formed assumptions such as, I'm not good enough, success isn't for me, or people always leave. These assumptions become subconscious programs operating in the background of life. The danger is that people become emotionally attached to these old identities because they feel familiar. Even painful identities can feel comfortable when repeated long enough. That is why transformation can initially feel unnatural. When you begin assuming a greater version of yourself, your mind may resist because it has been conditioned to identify with limitation for years. But discomfort does not mean the new identity is false. It simply means you are breaking psychological patterns that no longer serve your future. The moment your self concept changes, your entire relationship with reality changes. You stop begging life for validation because you already feel valuable internally. You stop chasing approval because you no longer define yourself through other people's opinions. You stop fearing rejection because your identity is no longer dependent on external acceptance. Instead of reacting like the old version of yourself, you begin operating from confidence, certainty, and expectation. This internal shift affects everything around you. People can sense self concept even when no words are spoken. The person who assumes confidence carries a different energy into every room. The person who assumes abundance thinks differently about opportunities. The person who assumes they are successful naturally makes decisions aligned with success. Reality begins rearranging itself to reflect the new identity because your assumptions influence your perception, behavior, emotional state, and interactions with the world. One of the greatest mistakes people make is waiting for external evidence before changing their self concept. They say, once I become successful, I'll feel confident, or once I'm loved, I'll feel worthy. But the outer world only reflects the inner identity already accepted within consciousness. You must become internally before reality confirms it externally. The confidence comes first. The worthiness comes first. The abundance mindset comes first. Then the world begins mirroring that internal transformation. This is why mental discipline is so important. Every thought you repeatedly accept strengthens your self concept. Every inner conversation either reinforces limitation or builds empowerment. If you constantly speak negatively about yourself, you reinforce the old identity. But when you deliberately begin affirming a new version of yourself, you slowly impress a new assumption onto the subconscious mind. Statements like, I am valuable, I am chosen, I am powerful, and I am worthy of success are not empty words when repeated with feeling. They are seeds planted into consciousness that eventually grow into visible experiences. You must stop identifying with your past. Your past failures are not your identity. Your temporary struggles are not your identity. The mistakes you made years ago do not define your future unless you continue emotionally carrying them. Every day gives you the opportunity to choose a new concept of self. The version of you that created past limitations does not have to remain in control forever. When you truly change your self concept, life begins responding differently almost automatically. Opportunities appear more naturally. Relationships improve. Confidence increases. Fear weakens. You stop settling for less because you no longer see yourself as less. The world starts reflecting the value you finally recognize within yourself. Your life changes the moment you stop asking, What do I currently have? And begin asking, who am I choosing to become? Because the reality you experience tomorrow will always mirror the identity you accept today. One of the greatest reasons people remain trapped in unwanted situations is because they give too much power to circumstances. They look at their bank account, relationships, failures, delays, or current conditions and immediately accept them as permanent truth. They emotionally surrender to appearances and allow visible reality to decide what they can believe about themselves. But circumstances were never meant to control your inner state. Circumstances are only temporary reflections of past assumptions, and the moment you stop emotionally worshipping them, you begin reclaiming your creative power. Most people live entirely by what they can see. If money is low, they assume abundance is impossible. If opportunities are absent, they assume success is far away. If someone rejects them, they assume they are not worthy. Every visible condition becomes emotional evidence supporting limitation. But this way of living keeps people trapped in endless repetition because they continue reacting to the same reality they are unconsciously recreating. The outer world is always delayed. What you are experiencing today is often the result of thoughts, beliefs, fears, and assumptions repeatedly entertained in the past. Yet people keep using current conditions as proof that change cannot happen. They fail to realize that reacting emotionally to unwanted circumstances only strengthens them. Attention is power. What you emotionally focus on grows stronger in your consciousness, and consciousness continues reproducing it in reality. Imagine constantly saying, nothing is changing, my life is stuck, or things never work out for me. These statements may feel logical based on appearances, but they reinforce the very reality you wish to escape. The subconscious mind accepts repeated emotional impressions as truth, and reality faithfully mirrors those beliefs back. That is why complaining about circumstances rarely changes them. It only deepens identification with limitation. True transformation begins when you stop allowing appearances to emotionally control you. This does not mean pretending the outer world does not exist. It means refusing to give it authority over your identity and future. There is a massive difference between observing circumstances and emotionally surrendering to them. Powerful people understand that temporary conditions are not final reality. They understand that the visible world can change once consciousness changes. The moment you stop worshipping circumstances, you begin directing them instead. You stop asking the outer world for permission to believe in yourself. You stop waiting for visible evidence before feeling confident, abundant, or successful. Instead, you choose your inner state deliberately regardless of appearances. Even when reality seems unchanged, you remain loyal to the assumption of the life you desire. This requires mental discipline because the world constantly tries to pull your attention back toward fear and limitation. Bills arrive, delays happen, people doubt you, results may not appear immediately. In those moments, most people return to old thinking because they trust appearances more than imagination. But the person who persists internally despite external contradiction becomes unstoppable. They understand that reality eventually bends to sustained assumptions. Think about how different your life would feel if you stopped reacting emotionally to every temporary problem. Instead of panicking over financial difficulty, you would remain grounded in abundance internally. Instead of feeling defeated by rejection, you would continue assuming your worth and value. Instead of interpreting delays as failure, you would trust that reality is rearranging itself in unseen ways. This inner stability changes everything because your emotional state directly influences the reality you continue creating. Your assumptions must become stronger than appearances. The outer world may temporarily show the opposite of what you desire, But that does not mean your desired reality is impossible. Every major transformation first happens invisibly before becoming physically visible. Seeds grow underground long before anyone sees evidence on the surface. In the same way, your new reality begins forming internally before it fully appears externally. This is why persistence matters so much. Most people quit mentally too soon. They affirm abundance for a few days, then panic when money has not yet appeared. They imagine success briefly, then return to doubt after one setback. But reality reflects dominant states consistently maintained over time. If you constantly switch between belief and fear, you continue creating unstable results. Persistence in assumption is what eventually overpowers old circumstances. You must learn to think from the reality you desire instead of reacting to the one currently visible. If you desire freedom, think like a free person now. If you desire success, begin emotionally identifying with success now. If you desire love, stop embodying rejection internally. The outer world follows the emotional identity you repeatedly occupy. Circumstances are not masters. They are effects. They are shadows created by previous states of consciousness. Once you understand this, fear begins losing its grip over your mind. You realize that no temporary condition has the authority to define your future unless you continue emotionally agreeing with it. The people who transform their lives are not necessarily the people with perfect circumstances. They are the people who refuse to emotionally bow to current limitations. They choose their assumptions deliberately. They persist internally even when appearances disagree. And eventually reality reorganizes itself to match their inner conviction. So stop worshipping what is temporary. Stop letting visible conditions tell you who you are or what is possible for your future. Your circumstances do not create your identity. Your identity creates your circumstances. The moment you understand this deeply, you stop becoming a victim of reality and start becoming the director of it. Everything that exists in the physical world was once invisible. Every invention, every masterpiece, every empire, every achievement, every transformed life first began as an idea held within the imagination of someone who dared to believe beyond present circumstances. The future is always created internally before it becomes visible externally. Yet most people underestimate the power of imagination because they have been conditioned to treat it as fantasy instead of understanding it as a creative force shaping reality itself. From childhood, people are taught to trust only what they can physically see. They are rewarded for being practical, logical, and realistic, while imagination is often dismissed as childish dreaming. But imagination is not escapism. It is the hidden workshop where reality is formed before it appears in the outer world. Every possibility already exists as a potential reality waiting for someone to mentally accept it first. The problem is that most people unknowingly use imagination against themselves every single day. Instead of imagining success, they imagine failure. Instead of visualizing opportunities, they mentally rehearse disappointment. Instead of seeing themselves loved, confident, abundant, and victorious, they continuously replay scenes of fear, rejection, struggle, and limitation. Their imagination becomes a tool for reinforcing anxiety rather than creating transformation. Think about how often the mind automatically drifts toward worst-case scenarios. A person fears losing money before any loss happens. Someone imagines rejection before speaking to another person. Others mentally rehearse failure long before taking action. These inner images create emotional states that influence behavior, decisions, energy, and perception. Over time, reality begins reflecting those dominant mental pictures back into physical experience. Your imagination is constantly creating because consciousness responds to repeated inner images with emotional intensity. Whatever you repeatedly picture and emotionally accept begins impressing itself upon the subconscious mind. The subconscious cannot distinguish between something vividly imagined and something physically experienced. That is why imagination has such enormous influence over reality. The feelings generated internally become signals shaping your future experiences. This is why successful people often see possibilities long before others can understand them. They imagine a different reality before evidence exists. They emotionally connect with a future outcome, while others remain trapped in current appearances. Every great transformation begins with someone refusing to let visible conditions define what is possible. The outer world always follows the inner world. First comes the invisible assumption, then comes the visible manifestation. But most people reverse the process. They say, I'll believe it when I see it. Yet the creative process of life operates the opposite way. You see it internally first. You emotionally accept it first. Then reality eventually reflects it externally. Imagination allows you to step beyond current limitations and mentally occupy a different version of yourself. You can imagine yourself already successful, already confident, already wealthy, already free, already loved. The moment you consistently enter that mental and emotional state, your consciousness begins shifting. And once consciousness changes, reality begins rearranging itself to match the new inner identity. This does not mean sitting passively and wishing for miracles while doing nothing. Imagination changes the way you think, feel, perceive, and respond to life. A person who imagines abundance begins noticing opportunities they previously ignored. A person who imagines confidence naturally behaves differently in social situations. A person who imagines success makes decisions from certainty rather than fear. The inner vision influences outer behavior, and reality gradually mirrors that transformation. Many people fail because they only use imagination occasionally while spending the rest of the day emotionally attached to fear and doubt. They imagine success briefly, then spend hours worrying about failure. They visualize abundance for a few minutes, then return to feelings of lack and anxiety. The subconscious responds most strongly to repeated emotional states, not temporary moments of positivity. This is why persistence matters. The future changes when the new inner vision becomes more emotionally dominant than old fears. You must learn to protect your imagination from negative conditioning. The world constantly encourages limitation. People project doubt, fear, and realism onto your dreams. Society teaches you to lower expectations and stay within familiar boundaries. But imagination is the doorway to every expanded possibility in life. The people who transform their reality are the ones who refuse to surrender their inner vision to external negativity. Your imagination should become a sacred space where you repeatedly experience the life you desire before it physically arrives. Feel the emotions of success now. Feel the joy of freedom now. Feel the confidence of your desired identity now. The subconscious responds to emotional conviction more than logical reasoning. When you emotionally live from the wish fulfilled internally, reality begins moving toward that state. Every night before sleep and every morning upon waking are especially powerful moments because the mind becomes more receptive to suggestion. If you fill those moments with images of the life you desire, you slowly impress a new reality upon consciousness. Over time, these repeated assumptions harden into belief, and belief begins expressing itself through circumstances, opportunities, relationships, and experiences. The future is not randomly created outside of you. It is shaped first through the images you consistently hold within yourself. Your imagination is not meaningless fantasy. It is one of the most powerful creative forces you possess. The life you desire already exists as a possibility waiting for acceptance. And the moment you stop using imagination to rehearse fear and begin using it to embody your desired reality, your entire future starts changing from the inside out. Because imagination is not escaping reality. Imagination is creating the next version of it before the world can physically reveal it. The greatest mistake most people make is living emotionally attached to their current reality instead of the reality they desire. They wake up every day reacting to visible circumstances, allowing present facts to determine their thoughts, emotions, and expectations. If money is low, they feel poor. If love is missing, they feel lonely. If success has not yet appeared, they feel discouraged. Their emotional state becomes controlled by what already exists instead of by what they truly want to create. But transformation begins when you stop living from present facts and start living from the feeling of the wish fulfilled. To live from the wish fulfilled means mentally and emotionally occupying the state of your desired reality before it physically appears. It means thinking, feeling, and identifying with the version of yourself who already has what you desire. Most people wait for external evidence before they allow themselves to feel successful, confident, abundant, or loved. But reality responds to inner identity first. The outer world follows the emotional assumptions you consistently maintain within consciousness. This is where true faith begins. Faith is not blindly hoping something might happen someday. Faith is emotionally accepting the unseen reality as already true within yourself. It is choosing to identify with your desired future regardless of temporary appearances. When you live from the wish fulfilled, you stop chasing your desire from a state of lack. Instead, you internally become the person who already possesses it. Most people unknowingly live from the feeling of absence. They constantly think about what they do not have. They say things like, I need more money, I hope things improve, or I wish my life were different. But these thoughts reinforce the emotional state of not having. The subconscious mind responds to feeling more than words. If your dominant emotional state is lack, struggle, or longing, reality continues reflecting those states back to you. Living from the wish fulfilled changes your entire relationship with desire. Instead of emotionally chasing success, you begin thinking from success. Instead of yearning for love, you begin feeling loved internally. Instead of hoping for abundance someday, you begin embodying abundance mentally and emotionally now. This shift may seem subtle, but it completely transforms the energy you bring into life. Imagine the difference between someone who feels internally defeated and someone who feels internally victorious before results appear. The defeated person reacts with fear, doubt, hesitation, and insecurity. The victorious person moves through life with confidence, expectation, calmness, and certainty. Even before visible evidence appears, their internal state influences their decisions, behavior, and perception. Reality gradually begins reflecting that inner conviction outwardly. The challenge is that present facts often try to pull you back into old thinking. Bills may still exist. Delays may continue temporarily. Problems may not disappear overnight. This is where most people lose faith because they continue judging reality only by appearances. They say nothing is happening simply because they cannot yet see physical confirmation. But the creative process always begins invisibly before it becomes visible. Just because something has not appeared physically does not mean movement is not already occurring beneath the surface. Living from the wish fulfilled requires persistence. You must remain emotionally loyal to your desired identity even when circumstances temporarily contradict it. This is not denial of reality, it is understanding that reality is fluid and responsive to consciousness. If you continue reacting emotionally to old conditions, you keep reproducing them. But if you consistently occupy the emotional state of your fulfilled desire, reality eventually conforms to that assumption. Your inner conversations become extremely important in this process. Ask yourself daily, how would I think if my desire were already fulfilled? How would I feel? How would I carry myself? How would I respond to life? Begin embodying those answers internally. A person who feels abundant does not constantly think from fear and scarcity. A person who feels loved does not obsess over rejection. A person who feels successful does not mentally identify with failure. This is why imagination and emotion must work together. Merely repeating positive words without emotional involvement creates little change. But when you vividly imagine your desired reality and emotionally feel it as real, you impress that assumption deeply upon the subconscious mind. The subconscious then begins influencing your perceptions, behaviors, opportunities, and experiences to align with that inner state. Many people believe they must force reality to change through struggle and constant effort. But often the greatest shift happens internally first. When your identity changes, your actions naturally change. Your energy changes. Your expectations change. You begin noticing opportunities that once seemed invisible. People respond differently to you because you are no longer operating from the same emotional frequency. Life starts reflecting the person you have become internally. Living from the wish fulfilled also frees you from desperation. Desperation comes from believing your happiness depends entirely on external conditions changing first. But when you internally occupy the feeling of fulfillment now, you stop emotionally begging life for validation. You become grounded, stable, and certain because your inner state is no longer controlled by temporary appearances. The future you desire already exists as a possibility within consciousness. Your task is not to force it into existence through fear or struggle. Your task is to emotionally align yourself with it so completely that it begins feeling natural within you. Once that happens, reality begins moving in harmony with your dominant assumption. Stop living from current facts if those facts only reflect old limitations. Start living from the version of yourself who already possesses the life you desire. Feel it internally before you see it externally. Think from it before evidence appears. Persist in that state despite temporary contradictions. Because the moment you truly live from the wish fulfilled, your outer world begins transforming to match the reality you have already accepted within. The greatest transformation in your life will not happen when the world changes around you. It will happen the moment you change the assumptions within you. The day you stop calling your limitations reality is the day your power returns. You were never meant to be trapped by appearances. You were never meant to let circumstances define your future. You were born with the ability to mentally choose a new identity, emotionally accept it, and watch life reorganize itself around that assumption. So stop waiting for evidence before you believe in yourself. Stop asking the world for permission to dream bigger. Stop using your past as proof that your future cannot change. Because the life you desire is not created by realism, it is created by conviction, by imagination, by assumption sustained with faith. And if you can dare to persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, if you can remain loyal to the version of yourself you choose internally, then no force on earth can stop your reality from eventually reflecting it. The moment you stop being realistic, you finally become limitless. Thank you for being here, and thank you for opening your mind to a greater possibility for your life. If this message spoke to your soul, don't let it remain just inspiration. Turn it into a daily practice. Begin assuming the highest version of yourself. Begin thinking from your desired reality instead of your current circumstances. And remember, Your imagination is not escaping reality, it is creating it. If you enjoyed this message, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to break free from limitation and step into a new life. Your new reality begins the moment you assume it. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.